Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Rural Rapport. My name is Teresa Hoffman. I'm a Senior Communications Associate here at the Center for Rural Affairs. As we're waiting for people to join us, let me tell you a little bit about the Center. Established in 1973, the Center for Rural Affairs exists to create vibrant rural communities. We do this through small business training, lending, working with communities, farmers and ranchers, and policy change. On today's Rural Report, I'm joined by Center Policy Associate Kate Hansen to discuss crop insurance for small grains. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section. Thanks for joining us today, Kate.
Thanks for having me, Teresa.
Just last week, the Center released a new resource on this topic of small grains. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the resource, I guess I'd call it kind of like a guide. It's called From Seed to Secured, Crop Insurance for Small Grains. And as the title implies, it has kind of a focus on crop insurance options if you have small grains as part of your operation, specifically kind of focusing on wheat, oats, barley, and rye for the purposes of the guide. And so it'll provide, if you open it up, sort of an overview of options, what you have out there available to you in the sort of crop insurance landscape, what some options might be right off the bat. And then if those don't work out, what's a second and third option? So it kind of walks through what might be a process for a farmer trying to get insured. And then we also have 2 interviews in the guide. One is with a farmer in Minnesota who insures his wheat, and one is with a crop insurance agent in Nebraska who has pretty wide experience. He's worked with conventional organic producers. He's done some written agreements, which is one of those sort of avenues. And so an interview with him as well. And it's a great resource. I'd say it's something that a farmer could pick up and learn something from, an agent might be able to learn something from, and just kind of focusing in on the small grains.
Our viewers may have varying knowledge of crop insurance. Can you give us an overview of what type of programs we're talking about?
Yes, so kind of basically speaking, crop insurance exists to protect a farmer's crop and value that's out there in the field. And it's a risk management strategy. So for some, that is sort of the main tool in the toolbox that they're using. They're relying on that crop insurance. For others, maybe it's a smaller tool, or maybe their operation just doesn't need it or they don't use it. And it's just important to us that everybody kind of has the information they need to make those decisions. Federal crop insurance is sort of the main one that folks are using, and it's federally subsidized and administered by the USDA Risk Management Agency, or RMA. And so it's a USDA agency that sort of administers and oversees these programs. And then policies are sold by agents, what are called approved insurance providers. So private companies that are approved by RMA to sell these policies. They're federally subsidized, but it's kind of a private person selling it to you.
Why is this an important topic to focus on?
Yeah, small grains are a part of many operations across the Midwest and Great Plains. And, farmers might be opting to grow them for a number of reasons. They have a long list of conservation benefits. If you're organic, part of that requirement to be certified organic is having a rotation. So that's likely going to be a part of an organic farmer's rotation. Maybe they've identified some local markets and are selling there. And for those folks, it's important, like I said, that they have the right information to decide if they want to buy crop insurance or not. Sort of out there, crop insurance for small grains is a little bit more specific. So if you are able to buy a policy, it's going to be dependent on what crop we're talking about, what county you're in, where you're located. And it is kind of a question of what is available to you. Whereas something like corn or soybeans, if you're in the Midwest, if you're in the Great Plains, it's pretty, you can be pretty confident you can buy one of those policies. But small grains is a little bit more varied in terms of what's available. So really focusing in and kind of taking this specific question to task, what's out there for small grains is kind of our purpose here.
Great. What other information can be expected or found in this guide?
Yeah, so I alluded to it a little bit, but I'll just kind of give some more detail to the different types of policies we'll talk about. The first is what's called multi-peril crop insurance. This is kind of what I call the off-the-shelf policy. This is what most corn and soybeans in the Midwest and Great Plains are being insured by. And there are also small grains options for that. So if you have that available to you, that's probably going to be the route you take just because it's established. It's kind of all right there for you to sign up for, to buy. If that's not an option based on where you are or what the crop is, there's what's called a written agreement process. And it gets a little bit complicated, but basically this is asking RMA for sort of a specific coverage. So me in my county with these specific numbers, will you cover me? Or can I get insurance? But it's not part of that sort of off the shelf policy. And it is a little bit more work. So we'll talk about that in the guide. We also discuss what's called whole farm revenue protection, which is sort of an alternative style to insuring. It's actually insuring the revenue of an operation based on your tax documents rather than your yields or your sort of revenue, which is how the other programs work. And so we talk about that, and it is an option for small grains. And then we also talk a little bit about what I call like the landscape of private policies. As I said, the insurance companies are private selling this federally administered program or these policies. But they as private companies can also sell sort of little policies that often end up being supplemental to the multi-peril. And so there's just, kind of a few paragraphs in there as well about what to expect on private policies. We also talk about what's called the malting barley endorsement. This is an option available for folks raising barley for that purpose. And there are certain requirements that you have to fit within. And then the guide just has a bunch of great visuals, maps and guides showing where coverage is available. So if you really squint, you could probably find your county on some of those maps. I recommend not doing that just to make sure, but we have some good maps in there. We have some good graphs with dates and kind of numbers, how many small grains are in the region currently based on the census of ag. So some good things like that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have those 2 interviews with Gary, who's the farmer, and Scott, who's the crop insurance agent.
Well, great. As we know, farmers are currently wrapping up this year's harvest, but when will they need to start making decisions about their crop insurance for next year?
Yeah, I begin to sound a little bit like a broken record on this, but with small grains especially, it really depends where you are, your county, your state, and what crop we're talking about. But there is a big sales closing date or sort of date you need to purchase crop insurance by coming up, which is March 15th. And so most spring crops for next year in our region are going to be looking toward that deadline to buy crop insurance. So I know some folks are just sort of finishing harvest around now, but pretty soon this will be top of mind to buy by that March 15th deadline.
Well, this sounds like some great information and a great resource for folks out there. So where can they find the guide?
Yes, so I think our colleague is going to put a link in the comments section for how to get directly to the guide. You can also find it on our website at cfra.org/publications, and it should pop right up. We also have a number of other crop insurance resources at cfra.org/crop-insurance-resources. And that's sort of like a broader library of things we've done over the years, fact sheets and webinars and such. And finally, if you really want a hard copy, I would be happy to put one in the mail for you. So email me or call me. I think my info is going to be in the comments as well. And I'd be happy to do that and answer any questions you have.
Well, great. This sounds so great, Kate. Thanks again for joining me today for the Rural Rapport. As a reminder to our viewers, you can visit the center's website, cfra.org, or follow us on social media. We are right here on Facebook. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and that's where we continually share resources that we develop, promote events that we are hosting, and just share information about the center, blogs, press releases, etc. So head on over there if you're looking for the guide and some more information on the center itself. Please join us back here live next Tuesday for another Rural Rapport. Have a good day, everyone.